This year has been an amazing reading year. Like when I tell you the books on this list, just get your pen and paper out because we about to get into it. Hi friends, welcome back to Bookmas. I'm Shelby Monet and this is Shelby in the Book Club. In today's video, we're going to talk about my top 10 books of 2024. This list was like so easy to put together for me based on my reading year that I almost was scared that I was forgetting something. Like when I tell you that I was able to spit off very quickly what my faves were without any, I was like, maybe that's not right. Like I kept looking at my list to make sure that I was including everything. There are a few that aren't on this list, but that you will see in another video. So stay tuned for an honorable mention because there were some books on there that didn't quite make this list, but made it in the honorable mentions because they're books that kind of lingered in my mind. All right. If you like to hear it go. Before we get started, make sure you like, you comment, subscribe. We are still growing our family here. Tell the people to come on. You know everybody's New Year's resolution is to read more. They might as well come and read with us. Everything will be linked in the underneath bar. Why is it called the underneath bar? Because it is where? Underneath the video. Let's get into it for real this time. Okay. If I had to put this list in an order, I probably would have stressed myself out and they probably would have had to go in and fix my heart again. So no particular order. These are just my faves. If you see me looking down, I am looking at the mini girl. This is my iPad mini. I read on her. I take notes on her. Where I go, she go. Where she go, I go. It's my homegirl. You might want to get you one. Because the girls is complaining about the color on the Color Soft Kindle. And I think y'all's issue is you need an iPad mini. First on this list, we have James by Percival Everett. I have been talking about this book all year. It has won numerous awards this year, rightfully so. It is on everybody's list. Where do I begin with my love for James by Percival Everett? It is on the surface a retelling of Huck Finn from the perspective of James, Jim, the slave in Huckleberry Finn. He goes on this journey that very much mimics some of the things that we already know from Huck Finn, but it is really a conversation about how linguistics and literacy is a tool that we as Black people use for survival. It is a conversation about coming into your own as not only a Black person, but a Black man. The duality that is needed to be a Black person and to code switch so that you can fit into certain places and survive. The writing is beautiful. It's funny in places, right? I think the thing that was most impressive to me was Percival Everett's ability to mimic the social commentary of Huck Finn while still making it his own. It's one of those books where if you get it, you get it. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, try it again in a couple years. Read some other things first and then read James because it was a phenomenal book. I can't wait to read it again. I have yet to recommend it to somebody and they did not thoroughly enjoy it from a lot of different readers too, right? I've recommended it to people that mostly only read romance. They enjoyed it. I've recommended it to people that love historical fiction. They enjoyed it, right? I've recommended it to so many different people and they all have found the greatness in James. I think it takes a lot for an author to be able to reach a lot of different audiences. I loved it. There's no notes. Like there's nothing that I could say to, I loved it. I loved James. Like I distinctly remember finishing it and just staring at the book because what did I just read? Like, oh my God, James by Percival Everett. Next, The Blueprint by Regina Rashad. I don't know why this book hasn't gotten more love and more recognition, because the blurbs on it say that it is a mix between Kindred by Octavia Butler and The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. And not no. But it's so much more than that. It tells a story of a woman that is living in a world similar to the one like Gilead in The Handmaid's Tale, right? But from the perspective of Black people, because it wasn't no colors. It wasn't no colors in The Handmaid's Tale. But anyway, she is going back and forth between her situation, living in this world where a system picks who you are married to, who you are mated with, and she is in a relationship with a white man who is very high ranking in this particular version of America. And at the same time, in the beginning of each section or so, we get the perspective of one of her ancestors who she was told the story of. And her ancestor was a slave in a similar situation where she felt like if she could make her owner like her in some ways, that's very a loose explanation, that maybe life would be easier for her. And the main character in The Blueprint kind of goes through a similar thing where she realizes that in order for her to have freedom, she has to take it herself. We cover so many different subjects: sisterhood, right? How women treat each other, the relationship between older Black women and younger Black women, right? And how they teach us to navigate the world, and the things that we go through, right? It was beautifully written. It's very vivid. I felt like I was alongside the character the entire time. I really don't understand why it's not getting more recognition. Regina Rashad is phenomenal. I cannot wait to see what else she has. I found myself saying a lot this year with the debuts that I read that if this is their first, what is their peak gonna look like, right? Like if we're starting here, what else is there to come? Like I can only imagine. Next, we have When Crack Was King, by Donovan X. Ramsey. One, I want to say y'all should be following him on Instagram if you don't. He is a joy to follow on Instagram. The little TikToks that he posts and the videos that he posts, how he talks about current events, because he is a journalist, is phenomenal. The way he wrote When Crack Was King, I feel like all history needs to be written this way. He mixed in a lot of fact with let me not say fact because it is nonfiction, so not necessarily fact, but he mixed in actual events and laws and things that were happening in the government with stories of actual people. And I think when we start hearing the stories from the victims, that's when things are going to start changing, and that's when things hit home a little bit. So there were 4 or 5 different people that he weaved in their stories from different walks of life. There was a politician, there was a young drug addict, there was a son of a drug addict, like they're just from all different walks of life, so that when he was giving us the laws and the current events and the things that were happening in the newspaper, we had an actual person that was living the ramifications of whatever those actions were, right? I think sometimes when we're reading nonfiction, it's easy to get caught up in the fact of everything, and it sometimes it doesn't hit home when it's just like on 1983 at noon they passed this particular law and it was racist because, and it's like, okay, well, what does that actually mean? But to see that, okay, this thing happened and then this is the effect that it had, just did something totally different. It's a very tangible nonfiction. I feel like whether you read nonfiction all the time or you don't read it often at all and you want to dabble in it, When Crack Was King is a phenomenal place to start. Phenomenal place to start. It is long, so I would say take your time getting through it, but chef's kiss. Next, The Message by Ta-Nehisi Coates. I am in awe of that man. I am in awe of his confidence. I am in awe of how he is able to take the different phases of his life and his understanding of how he was raised, how he was taught history, and apply it to the man that he is now and the man that he wants to be. The Message is phenomenal. The Message is phenomenal. For him to sit and to be able to say that apartheid South Africa, the racist South here in America and Palestine are all the same place. Nobody has probably ever put it to you in that particular way, right? And for him to kind of follow this journey of understanding why he felt the way that he did, why he didn't realize that he was also a part of the oppression of other people, although he is oppressed himself. Just phenomenal. If you want to hear more of my thoughts, you should check out my podcast that I have with my lovely friend Jess, called The League of Extraordinary Readers. We did an episode where we reviewed The Message with our friend Sarah of Annotate with Sarah. We talked about annotations. We talked about how the book affected us. We talked about our feelings and all of that. It's a phenomenal book. Speaking of another phenomenal book, Sky Full of Elephants by Sibo Campbell. My God. Sky Full of Elephants is a book that if you get it, you get it. I think you need to go into Sky Full of Elephants not really, I don't want to say not knowing, but without judgment. I think you just need to flow through it. You just need to flow through it. And I say that because when you read the synopsis, and the synopsis says that all of the white people walked into the water, bodies of water, and no longer are around, that is very jarring. And you're like, what am I going into? And if you have a certain understanding of the world that we live in, you may look at that and say, that's racist, right? What Sky Full of Elephants is about is, what if we took away our oppressor, right? What if we took away the bad thing or things that have harmed us for centuries? Would that just automatically make this a better place to live in, right? Then you also have to narrow that down and think about the mental effects of what white supremacy has done to this country and Black people, and how generational trauma isn't just going to disappear when our oppressors disappear. Because now, without them here to reinforce all of the trauma that they have enforced on us, right? Systemic trauma, generational trauma, person to person trauma, right? Now you have to unlearn, right? Because everything that you hate about yourself was given to you. Everything you hate about yourself, Black woman, Black man, Black person, it was given to you. And what if we all were just on one accord? What if we just got together, one band, one sound, and figured out how to love ourselves? That's what Sky Full of Elephants is like. Because what is the power behind that? What is your journey like loving your blackness, learning to love your blackness from whatever types from wherever in the diaspora you come from, right? What is that journey like when you don't have anything to push against you, right? That's what Sky Full of Elephants is about. Again, if you get it, you get it. If you just aren't in that place yet, it's not for you. It's not. Sibo Campbell, I am in awe of him. I am in awe of him because there were a lot of things about this book that I was like, well, why wasn't there more violence? Right? Why weren't there certain things? Beautifully written, you can tell that he is a poet. Beautifully written, you can tell he is well read. I keep telling y'all that the key to being a good writer is to be a good reader. You're not reading enough, my author friend. You're not reading enough. You're not reading vastly enough. You're not reading diversely enough. You're not. I'm telling you, you're not. You're not reading enough. You're not reading enough, friend. You are not reading enough. That's why you pick up something like James or Sky Full of Elephants or hell, the Reformatory, like what I'm going to talk about in a few. You pick up books like that and you can't see the deeper aspects of it because you don't read enough. You only are touching the surface because you don't read enough. You don't read enough. So because you're not reading enough, you're not picking up the nods to Toni Morrison, right? You're not picking up the nods to other authors and other techniques that are in these books. You are not reading enough. Sky Full of Elephants is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful book about Black utopia. And it feels like it's a dystopian, right? Because an event as large as an entire race of people disappearing, basically, right, is a dystopian idea. But once you get into the nitty-gritty of Sky Full of Elephants, it's about Black utopia. It's about creating community amongst like-minded people that will teach you how to love yourself so that you can pass that on to the others. Sky Full of Elephants is phenomenal. And I honestly think that you should be reading Sky Full of Elephants and James back to back. Back to back. Next, we have Curvy Girl Summer by Danielle Allen. Oh my God. As a curvy girl, as a 30-something, that hasn't necessarily met certain goals, I needed Curvy Girl Summer. I needed Curvy Girl Summer so bad. It tells the story of a woman who is grieving the loss of her sister. She's about to turn 30 and she don't have a man, and she's reached all of these other goals in her life, but her family is like, well, but your sister did, and your sister had, and your whatever. And babe, when I tell you, that triggered the hell out of me. Ooh, it triggered me. But it has a fake dating trope. So she tells herself that she's gonna find herself a man because she may or may not have told a lie to her family that she did have a man and she was bringing him to her 30th birthday party. And she had to figure it out. So she goes to this bar and she meets someone, and that's all I'm gonna tell you. It's super cute. It's spicy. It reminded me that contemporary romance doesn't have to lack spice. It can be both, right? And I think sometimes we kind of assume that spice means there has to be like a sex scene every other page or every other chapter, and that's not necessarily true. I think good spice is about intensity and placement. Danielle Allen does that very, very, very well, because there aren't many spicy scenes in the book, right? But the ones that are there, baby, child, I love Curvy Girl Summer. The second one comes out next year. I'm so excited. 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 I'm so exci and it may or may not be a book club pick. Maybe you want to click the link in my description box to join the Discord, because maybe it'll be, you know, you never know what's gonna happen. Next, A Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams. Ricky Wilde does not want to be a part of the family business. She wants to own a flower shop. She meets a woman who has space in a brownstone in Harlem, and that leads Ricky on her journey to opening her business. Along the way, some things happen. She meets someone, and there is a magical realism to this story that I love. I kind of want Tia Williams to explore that a little bit more. I loved the magical realism in it, because I'm not even gonna say anything because I don't want to spoil it for you. I loved the musical aspects of it. I loved how it was written. Tia Williams just has a way of deeply submersing you into her stories. It doesn't matter what she is writing about. She just knows how to do it. It was funny, right? The main character, Ricky, has a best friend who is like with the shit, you know, like it's so real but also just fluffy. Like there are scenes where they have to go see the tarot lady. Like it was perfect. I loved The Love Song for Ricky Wilde. I can't wait for her YA romance to come out next year. I think that's gonna be super cute. And I just can't wait to be amongst Tia Williams again. I got to meet her at a book event earlier this year, so I'm hoping to be able to do the same thing when Audrey and Bash Are Just Friends releases in May, I believe. So I'm super excited for that. Next, we have Hostle Takeover by Christina C. Jones. I love Christina C. Jones. She is another author that does not sacrifice the spice in your contemporary romance. So Hostle Takeover is a forced proximity. The main character, her family owns a chain of grocery stores in, I forget what, I feel like it was in the South. And the business is tanking, and she had no idea until she goes to this business meeting, and this very fine ass black man comes in there and says, I can fix all of this if your daughter marries me. And she was like, do what? So she trying to fight back, baby. That man said, hey, you want to save the family business? Marry me. It might be worth your while. And there was a contract, and things were a little bumpy at first, but I would like to meet my man in the grocery store randomly, and he say, here go your options. You could get with this, or you could get with this. There are your options. It was so cute. I love Hostle Takeover. The audiobook for that is very good too. I did both. I listened to the audiobook and I read it. Both are very good. You won't be disappointed. The last two on this list are horror. And before I even get into them, I want you to know that I'm not a horror girly, but I think I might be now. I think I might be now. So first we have Model Home by Rivers Solomon. When I tell you the book made me cry, it made me cry. Model Home is a large puzzle. It's a large puzzle that you just have to put the edges together, right? Because the edges is your anchor, right? The edges are the things that you know, and you have to stick with the things that you know. And then you just put the other pieces together until it comes full circle. Don't try to guess what it is, right? Don't try to guess the big picture. Just get your anchor pieces, right? Get your border. Your border is what you know, and then the rest of it, you let it fall together. Excuse me. Let it piece itself together, and you are gonna go for a ride. It is about a group of sisters that find out that their parents have passed away in a house that has haunted them for years since they were a kid. And we are going on the journey to figure out what exactly is haunting the house. That's all I'm gonna tell you. That's all I'm gonna tell you. That's all I'm gonna tell you. It is a phenomenal read. I want to read more of their work. I did read The Deep this year by them, which was very, very good. I feel like a lot of it went over my head though. But Model Home is, I'm pointing because it's right there. Model Home is, it was well written. It's one of those books that's a little weird and quirky. It's gonna put you in the mind of Akwaeke Emezi's writing style, where it's kind of, it's very elevated, right? It's very, very elevated in its style, but also very plain. Like, I think that's why while I was reading it, every few chapters I was like, I got it, I know what it is, because it is so straightforward, but not at the same time. Phenomenal. It was phenomenal. Last but certainly not least, The Reformatory by Tanana Reeve-Dew. This wasn't my first Tanana Reeve-Dew. I've read a few of their horror collections that I very, very much enjoy. So I was very familiar with her writing style. The first time that I tried to read The Reformatory, I was a little shook up because she writes suspense in a way that is like beyond. Like, the way she writes suspense, I'm like, why am I hearing the creepy music? What's going on here? The Reformatory is about a reformatory school that you may be familiar with if you read, The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. They're writing about the same school. If you enjoyed The Nickel Boys, you will love The Reformatory. I say that because the spooky aspect, the horror that is in The Reformatory is the main character. He can see ghosts, right? So he can feel and see all of the trauma that the land of The Reformatory has, on top of the racism that is a large contributor to what is going on at this reform school. But it's a lot more personal than The Nickel Boys is. The Nickel Boys is a mystery of sorts because we are, I don't want to spoil The Nickel Boys for you, but there's information that we're trying to figure out about the characters in The Nickel Boys. So albeit sad because we do see the trauma and the abuse that the boys face, there is a mystery aspect. So we're getting a lot of pieces that need to be put together. Whereas The Reformatory is giving us our characters and their personal lives and like all of these things. It was beautifully written. It's a very, very good book. It's a long one. It's a chunker, but it doesn't feel that way. When you're reading it and when you're listening to it, it doesn't feel as long as it actually is. It actually flows very, very well. So I say you read it, even if you don't like horror. I think Tanana Reeve-Dew is a good place to start. Her and Victor Laval are good places to start with horror. If you don't want to be like, I gotta sleep with the flashlight, all the lights in the house on. If you don't want to be like that, but you just need a little spook, Victor Laval and Tanana Reeve-Dew are good places to start. So that is my list. It was a hard one to put together. It was a hard one to put together, but I did it. Let me know which one of these you have read already or that you plan to read down in the comments. If no one has told you today, I love you. You are kind, you are smart, you are important, if to no one, to me. Bye, friends.